So, hi everyone. I'm Valerie Fortin, working at FNEC as a psychic counselor, and I'm here with two of my colleagues. And it's like I think one of those we've been doing workshop, and this workshop is being recorded, and I'll show you immediately where you can find the recording once it's recorded. So I'll share my screen with you. See. Okay, so once you go on YouTube, you put CEPN or FNEC and you come here and you click on the icon. And once you click on the icon, you have a playlist where you can find all the 9 previous sessions we've been doing, the workshop. So the program is called Growing Together because it feels like we're all growing together, but we're supporting our children to grow together. So all the workshops you can find it. So you have one on play, one on attachment, and so there's plenty hours. And if you do have questions, then do not hesitate. We can also send you the handout, so you have the writings that comes along with it. So before we get that was the YouTube part. And then once it's recorded, I think that next week you will be able to find and you're able to share if there's part that you kind of forgot or you want to replay because you want to have a refresh, then go ahead, go on YouTube and have fun and fun with it. So I'm here today with Eva D'Agostini and Sarah Claret, and they will both introduce themselves. And if you have any question, feel free, please, to write your question in the chat box. I will be having a look on the questions. If it's appropriate, Eva or Sarah will answer the question on the spot, or there will be also a time for a question at the end. And we really appreciate when you give us your when you speak and when you have question or you have example or any comments, because I feel like it's nourishing our presentation, but it's like if we're doing that together, so it kind of become your presentation or your workshop at the same time. So have a great time. And Sarah.
Goeie Sarah Claret Technication, Mashtoyat Snuchin. I'm coming from Mashtoyat. Presently, I'm working at FNEC as a student success counselor in language and culture. Also, I'm a mother of 2. I'm an artist and a two-spirit person. I'm here in this workshop to bring the First Nation perspective and knowledge, just to make sure we remind ourselves the way our ancestors used to treat and raise children. They were really good at it, bringing those little ones into strong individual with strong values. So I'm very interested in these days to hear about your story. How do you raise strong children? How do you make sure that you pass on the culture, the language, and the value to your children in your schools and in your home? So feel free to share your knowledge with me. Like Valerie said, growing together, it's mean like it's all of us with our sharing that we can maybe learn and keep going on this journey of learning.
Yes, so I'm Eva D'Agostini, and I'm a school psychologist. I've worked in the field for many, many years, all across Canada. I am not Indigenous myself, but I have worked a lot in northern Saskatchewan and Yukon, and have certainly, well, many, many, many years ago and in the early days, just was so warmly welcomed by the communities and saw so many strengths. So what I'm going to be sharing with you today is a way of looking at children, a developmental way of looking at children, and it's developed by a psychologist in Vancouver called Gordon Neufeld, and also looking at the neuroscience in a number of different ways. As Valerie mentioned, this is a series of 12 different talks that we've given. This is number 10. And so for some of you that are new to us, there may be some things that you're wondering about, because I won't have a chance in an hour to kind of, elaborate on everything. For some of you that have already heard me speak, and in fact, if you've been one of the people that's been there all of the other 9 times, you're going to say, oh, okay, I heard this before. But it's really an attempt to pull together all of the material and the information so that we can better understand the children. So I'm just going to share my screen here. And today's topic is called Managing Challenging Behavior. But as I reflected upon it, what I really want to share today is not so much about managing the challenging behavior of like the really challenging behavior of children. Actually, if you go back and listen to the session we did last week, there's all sorts of ideas in there. What I want today to do is to focus on our little children. So we're talking about our 4-year-olds, our 5-year-olds, our 6-year-olds, some of our 7-year-olds, and really for us to figure out how to interact with some of the behaviors that they do that drive us nuts, that drive us crazy. The challenge is with us. The challenge isn't with them. The challenge is with us. And so this is what my focus is going to be on, is how can we help these kids? How can we use a discipline? And I put the word discipline in quotation marks, because really discipline, I'm going to define the word for you in a moment, but we need to make sure that anything that we do with the children continues to keep a very strong relationship with our children, and that it respects their development, and that we're not trying to make them into something that they're not. And you see a little picture of a plant here. Really, our job, especially with our younger children, is to grow deep, strong roots of attachment so that the little plant can just grow and grow and grow into what it's meant to grow into. So when we're interacting with a child who's not behaving the way we need them to behave or want them to behave, how can we do this in a way that respects who they are, maintains that very important relationship that the child has towards us as adults, and helps to grow them? Because really what discipline is, we think of discipline as correction. We think of discipline as kind of maybe even punishment. But actually, discipline is kind of a way of thinking. And it's what we as the adults have to do to impose order on the messiness of immaturity. And little children are very messy and noisy and do all sorts of things that are, as they say, are sometimes a bit of a problem for us, especially when we want to try and teach them or do something with them. So how can we help them to handle that immaturity, and what can we do to make it easier for them? Because we want to compensate for the maturity that is missing. A 4-year-old is a 4-year-old, is not a 24-year-old. 20 years of development that goes on there that we have to really work with. So what can we do while they're in that process of development? And so we have to assume the responsibility. Of course, we want to bring them to the point where they're somewhat civilized and can get along with other people and can follow directions, but we have to give them the time and the room to get there. And we have to be very, very sensitive to what it is that they need, because in order for them to grow and develop, we can't be stressing them. So when we look at our preschoolers, what kind of discipline do they need from us? Well, we have to compensate, and we have to, and to act, to accept the responsibility. How do we keep them out of trouble instead of asking them to control their impulses? How do we keep them out of situations that are well beyond their developmental level? And then how do we script appropriate behavior instead of expecting them to be completely socially sensitive? And this picture, to me, it just kind of warms my heart. I see these 2 little girls, especially that little tiny one. She must be just barely 3 years old. She wants to be good. Both of these children want to be good. They want to get it right. But oh my goodness, They are still, and we can see in their bodies, we can see it in their hands, we can see in their faces that they're not fully developed yet. And so we understand that as well about their brain and about their ability to manage their behavior. Because we have to remember, they don't really contemplate their feelings. They don't think about things. They don't think on the one hand, on the other hand. They just live their feelings. This little girl is thrilled to show you whatever it is in her hands, right? To look at her eyes. She's just so happy to show us. Now imagine that you've got 2 minutes to clean up the classroom and you got to get everybody out of the classroom. You are not thrilled with what's on her hands because you got to clean that off. But she is thrilled. She just did something that she wants to show to you. And she can't yet at 4 years old or at 5 years old or even at early 6-year-old be able to say, well, on the one hand, I want to do something that's really exciting for me, but on the other hand, it's going to bother my teacher, because they have one thought or one feeling at a time. When she was playing with that Play-Doh, all she could think about was how much fun it was to play with that Play-Doh, because they can't have on the one hand, on the other hand, thinking, because their brain is still developing. And so it's very easy for them to do the wrong thing. They don't want to do it. They really, 1 minute, I remember one teacher saying to me, I don't understand, Eva, 2 minutes ago, this little guy was telling me, or 10 minutes ago when the situation happened, but 1 minute he was telling me, I love you, I love you, I love you, I will do anything for you. And then when the bell rang and I asked him to go inside, he said, I hate you, you're so stupid. She said, is there something wrong with him? Nothing is wrong with him. He is a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old. In that case, it was a very immature 6-year-old who had one thought at a time. When he loved his teacher, he adored her. But when she told him that he had to come in from recess, and he couldn't yet hold those two thoughts. It's very interesting because by the time children get to 7 or 8 years old, some of the really verbal ones can say, oh, I don't know, sometimes I just don't like you very much, but I still like you. Ah, the mixed feelings. But these little ones don't have that. And so they're going to often do the wrong thing. And they constantly need to be reassured over and over again that it's okay, we're going to take care of you. So we have to deal with this. We have to get these little girls' hands cleaned up, but she didn't do it on purpose to mess it up, to make life difficult for us. She just could only think about playing with the Play-Doh and couldn't think about cleaning up. So we need to create some kind of a climate of warmth and caring, to basically constantly give children the message, we'll take care of you. So we create some kind of rituals, maybe have a nice smell in the classroom, or a little bit of quiet music, or a safe space where they can go when they get overwhelmed, some kind of a teepee or a tent, or even a table. If you don't have a lot of stuff in your classroom, just put a little tablecloth over a table where there's some soft materials where the child can touch them, some fidget items, maybe noise reducing headsets, quiet activities. These are all things that we provide for the children so that when they come into our care, they immediately feel, I'm taking care of you. Whatever happened yesterday is fine. I'm here again today. I'm going to take care of you. And when we can provide that sense of caring for children, it will be easier for them to do the right thing. The other thing which we need to think about is to plan less so that the children are not rushed. We have an agenda, but little children cannot always keep up with our agenda. And especially now that children have missed so much time away from school, it might be very easy for us to think, oh my goodness, just one more piece of work, just one more little thing I need them to do. No, it's actually the opposite. Because if you had 5 minutes to wash that little girl's hands, it wouldn't be such a problem for you or for her. So we need to constantly remind ourselves that little children can't be hurried, because that's just not the way they are. So if you do one less thing, it might cause one less problem for everyone. And over time, they'll catch up, they'll get there. So structure and routine is one of the ways that we work with children who are immature. We basically need to create and teach our routines. So where do you put your backpack? Where do you put your lunch? And most of you have already done this because it's October. And so you've done your routines, and you just often need to teach them over and over again and just let the kids know. When you start a routine, one of the things we tend to do, especially those of us in education, is we like to talk a lot. So we like to use a lot of words. But for children, words aren't enough. Sometimes they need other kind of cues to let them know we're going to start something. So we have musics, we have songs, we have chants. And again, kindergarten teachers are wonderful at this. Many of you have your song for starting the day, the good morning song, the clean up song, some kind of a chant. These are all important ways that don't use a lot of language. It's more the music and the rhythm that is helping the children know, oh, it's time to do something. Make the routines fun, obviously, so we can do things that are kind of interesting for the children. I'll show you a little bit later of some of the things we can do. And also don't forget to use the visual. I know that we're getting better now at using visual schedules so that children know then it's going to be playtime, then it's going to be cleanup time, then it's going to be eating time, then it's going to be nap time. So it's easy for them to know what's going to happen next. And of course, the visual markers. Where do I sit? Where do I go? Where do I stand? I think that that's something that we need to look at. So with the transition, and I'll look at that in a moment. With the transitions, managing the transitions. Now, see, what is the difference? Like a transition is when we're moving a child from something that they're already engaged in, and we're moving them into something that we need them to do. Most children don't do very well. Like they want to, that little girl wanted to play with her Play-Doh. And so we need to find out, how can I get the attention of the child without raising my voice? And it's also interesting that sometimes we need them to do something. Like a lot of times children are talking to each other and they won't stop talking to each other. And it's very tempting for us to kind of raise our voice and say, come on, listen, listen. And of course, that just adds more kind of stress to the environment. So what we want to do, and this is why the songs and the chants are so clever, because when you sing the song, now it's time to clean up, clean up, clean up. And we get all the children to sing, now it's time to clean the room, or whatever it is you want to do. I'm sure you have much nicer songs than that. Then the child is using their voice to sing the song. They can't be talking to their friend. And now you don't have to tell them stop talking. Now you just want them to sing. And you've got to make it fun. You've got to make that singing fun. It should be fun. It's song or a chant or a silly gestures. And really where they kind of look at you and you're singing louder and and you're making some kind of gestures with your hand. Because then when the song is over, they're all looking at you. And in that moment, you can have a silence, a smile. All right, let's get the last few toys cleaned up, and then it's going to be time for our snack. And you haven't had to raise your voice. You haven't had to raise your voice at all. And even some of the children that are kind of a little bit, hard to have time with attention, they're going to hear the song and they're going to join in eventually. Of course, not all children will, but most of them will. And then you might want to guide the behavior with a fun action like, oh, let's hop like a bunny. Let's hop over to the table like a bunny. Oh, let's be as quiet as a little mouse, and you put on your little mouse ears, you go like a little mouse, or big steps like a giant. And these are all ways where the children will look to us. They want to copy us. They want to do the same thing as us. They're using their bodies. They're getting involved in the activity, and we bring them to where we want them to go. The environment, as I mentioned, very visual. How can we guide them to keep, for example, out of each other's way? I remember being consulted once for a kindergarten class, and it was a teacher that didn't have a lot of experience, and there was a whole bunch of, quite a few children who had immaturity and behavior problems in the classroom, and she didn't have much experience. And she was saying we're supposed to do carpet time, but every time they go on the carpet, they roll around and they bump into each other and they're silly with each other. And so what we said to her is, well, find some way of keeping the children, telling the children where they're supposed to sit. So carpet swatches or even chairs or masking tape. So the children know. And the thing about carpet swatches is that you can move them around and, spread them out so that the children know, oh, this is where I sit. With that particular group, it was so immature and there were so many behavior problems. We even suggested, well, put them on a chair. Just sit them. It's not a punishment. It's easy for a child to know this is where I'm supposed to sit. A chair is kind of easier than the ground and maybe they can't roll around so much. Or lining up with masking tape or floor decals. And of course, now with COVID, we've used this a lot. And it's very helpful because a child kind of, looks down and goes, oh, this is where I'm supposed to stand. And they can self-correct. They just find the little spot that they're supposed to be at. When I was a child, and maybe some of you remember doing this as a child, my teachers, when we lined up, got us to stick our arm out. so that we were one arm away from the other child and less likely to bump into them. So we need to make it easy for the child to find the right place to be. Even photos can be helpful. So when you're going to put up the carpets, put them away. Like if you have the carpet swatches, then you take a picture of what it's supposed to look like when they're all piled up. And so for many of the children, this will, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do, and away they go because they see what it is. Or where the items should go. So you have the pictures on the outside of the bin, but also maybe a picture on the bottom of the bin. And again, I'm sure many of you have already done this. It just makes it easier for the children to find the right thing to do, and it's easier then at the end of the day to have a relatively organized classroom. So when they get into difficulty, it's really about us remembering that we need to help them out instead of correct them. We are so focused on trying to fix behavior and forget that when the child's brain has developed and developing more and more, and at about 4 years old, there are still many parts of the brain that have not yet connected together. This takes all the way till the age of 25 for those connections to happen. And so we often think about and want a child to do behaviors that they're not yet ready to do. So again, over and over again, we have to say to ourselves, oh, let me help you. Let me help you. Because we need to be very patient and resist the urgency of teaching them a lesson. Because things will change as the brain matures. This is one of the places in which the old kind of psychology, which we called behaviorism, used to say, oh my goodness, you have to correct a behavior right away because the child will never learn it. But now that we understand how the brain develops, we know that this behavior will come. And again, it's like as if we were trying to tell a 6-month-old child, you have to walk. Let me show you how to walk. You all know that when we leave children to their own devices, they will actually get up and walk. It comes naturally. And many of the behaviors that we expect of our 4 and 5-year-olds, like sharing, like cooperating, like following directions properly, all of these things are part of the maturation process. It's called rethinking the urgency of immediacy. One of the ways I say it is, our children are not pigeons. We don't need to correct their behavior right away. It will grow. And if we think that every behavior needs to be changed in that moment, it puts us so much pressure on the adults. Oh my goodness, I didn't stop that behavior. I didn't correct him. That's not what our children need from us. So if we try and figure out the right rewards or the right consequences to shape the behavior, we forget that much of behavior arises from emotions and instincts, which are tempered by maturation. Many of our children, have, like that little boy, when he told his teacher that he loved him, his emotion was love and caring towards the teacher. When the bell rang, and in that moment he fell out of attachment with his teacher, now he became frustrated because he didn't want to stop playing at recess time. Frustration was that emotion. And in that moment, his brain could only think of one at a time. As his brain becomes more mature, he's going to remember that he shouldn't tell his teacher that he hates her. But he can't do that at 4 and 5 years old. And if we focus too much on that at that moment in time, we're going to actually miss the boat. Maturation, not learning in the moment, is what will ultimately resolve most behavior problems. So we need to have a lot of patience in growing that beautiful human plant that we are growing. Now, we do sometimes need to manage circumstances. So if you have a child who every time, let's say they play in the block area, throws blocks around and hurts other children, it's absolutely up to us to look at a situation like that and take charge of it. So there are some children that, because these blocks are large and because they're hard, we can't let them play with the blocks. But we're not doing it because we want to change the child's behavior. We're doing it because it's in their best interest not to be the kid that hurts other kids in the classroom. I actually worked with a whole classroom of 4-year-olds who had been diagnosed with very severe behavior problems. And in that particular teacher, I said to that teacher, I said, there shouldn't be anything in your classroom that if a child throws it can hurt somebody else. And she had to remove about 3/4 of the toys that she had, because I said, until these children start feeling safe in your classroom, they're going to get frustrated and they're going to throw things. So it's not, you can take things away from a child. You can say to a child, no, you can't play here. No, you can't do that. But we're not doing it to change the behavior. We're doing it to keep the child out of trouble. It might be months and months before that child can play safely in the block area. And so we need to find another alternative for that child to do until they're ready to play safely with the blocks. So when they frequently get into trouble, we have to ask ourselves, when does this child have a difficult time? Some of our children are very distressed in the morning. They had a long bus ride. Things didn't go well at home. They weren't properly fed at home. So maybe in the first thing in the morning, we need to do something differently for them. Where do they have a difficult time? Do they have a difficult time, as I say, with the blocks? Do they have a difficult time, during lunchtime when there isn't much supervision? Or who do they have a difficult time with? I know that sometimes I know that in one of the classes that I worked with children with behavior problems, sadly, it was when the French teacher came in. They just didn't connect with the French teacher, and so they had a hard time, and some of them did better than the others. So sometimes it's the person, and so we need to figure that out. And then we have to say, okay, well, what can I do differently? Can I guide them to a different activity? Can I provide extra supervision? When a misbehavior happens, we really need to consider it an accident. Let me just give you an example of another situation that I was involved with. So this was many years ago when the 4-year-olds were first coming to our schools, and a very young teacher, a lovely, lovely young lady, but did not have a lot of experience with very young children, but had some very, very good instincts, asked me to come in and observe. And I saw this little girl, and she said, Eva, I want you to observe this little girl. Her name was Maria. She said, I want you to observe Maria because, there's something going on here, and I'm really worried about her because, well, Maria was 3 years old. She hadn't yet turned 4. She was twice the size of the other children in the classroom. Like, she was a big little girl, very immature, very sweet. She wasn't a bad little guy. But she was big and immature. And she said, Eva, she's fine for about 2-3 minutes playing with children, and then she gets frustrated. And then because of her size, she pushes the other children and she hurts them. I said, well, yeah. I said, poor kid, it's going to be a while before she kind of matures into her size. So as I was watching, I saw the little girl approaching 2 other little girls, and she wanted to play with them. And I could already see in the other little girls' eyes that they were going, oh no, we don't know what to do with Maria. So the teacher said, well, what should I do in that situation? I said, you know what, Maria, she will play with the other children. It'll come about, but too long is not so good. So let her play for a couple of minutes, and then just call her name. Say, Maria, I have something for you. Come over here. And then set up a little area where Maria can play by herself, because she's not mature enough yet to cooperate with the other children. And so that's what we did. And then 2 other little boys wanted to come and play with Maria. And so I said to the teacher, I said, they're going to start playing, and then they're going to take over. Then she's going to get frustrated. So now you got to take those other 2 little guys and say, well, this is where Maria is playing right now. Why don't you guys come over here and give them something else? What was so fascinating is I went back in May, and I saw Maria, and Maria was with her mother because it was time to get ready for kindergarten. And she was a very proud little girl. And I said to the teacher, wow, she says, Eva, I did exactly what you told me to do. I kept trying to keep her out of trouble, and I kept trying to keep the other kids out of trouble. And she said, I was just always managing the behavior, keeping everybody out of trouble. But I said, look, you have a very proud little girl that wasn't seen as perhaps a kid who's could hurt other children. She was proud. I said, that's exactly what our job is as the adults. Look and see where there might be trouble and keep the kids out of it. So this is just it, because we have to remember, when children have chronic problems, it's probably because they have too much frustration in their life. Perhaps they're really immature, like this little girl is, or they have a history of adverse childhood experiences, which causes them to be immature, even more immature for their age. There's a lot of emotion going on underneath. And our basic thing that we're looking at, especially with a child who comes in with a lot of emotions, is not what's wrong with this child, but rather what has happened in the life of this child and what can we do to help. It's really always about that. What can I do to help this child to create an environment until the child's brain can grow and develop, until they can become a little Maria who's in May and not the little Maria that was there in September. So we need to change the situation, anticipate and prevent. Does this child need more supervision at recess time? Do they need to be away from the other students in the hallway? We ask our children to all get dressed and there's too many kids around. Maybe one teacher said, okay, these two little kids, they are going to get dressed in another place where there aren't so many children. Going to the bathroom, but hopefully you have bathrooms in your classrooms. Sometimes they need a quieter space at lunchtime. And if there's a substitute teacher, either introduce the child to this person that they don't know, or maybe the child needs to spend the day with somebody else. And I know right now with COVID, that's a bit difficult, but anyway, but sometimes we know the situations that are difficult for this child, and we need to find a way to make that situation better. In the moment, if the child has hit somebody else, these 4 and 5-year-olds are going to hit someone else, we need to say things like, that's against the school rules. We can't do that anymore. This is not what you're supposed to do. It's really not to change the child's behavior. It's to let the other students know you're taking the behavior seriously. Because the hit came from an impulsive place. Obviously, we don't want them to hit anymore, but the other children need to know, I noticed that he was hitting and I'm going to do something about it. But in the back of our mind, we might have to say, oh, okay, that was too soon. I left her playing with the children too long. Now I'm going to cut it shorter. So we want to change the situation, not the child. So if we remove the other students, we remove the dangerous objects. Also very, very important here is to notice our tone of voice, because our tone can actually make a child more emotional. And when they're in trouble, we want to make them less emotional. So we change the tone of our voice. We change how we stand. Sometimes we want to do something to fix the child, but actually we need to because that can make a child more agitated, we need to kind of lower our shoulders, and act very calm, even like a duck, you're smooth on the surface, but paddling like mad underneath. Because really the way that we look, the way that we talk, the way that we are can either make a situation worse or manage a situation. And the other children are looking to us as, can you handle this? Actually, if a child is really like, this is stupid, I hate you, whatever, sometimes if we back up, they start yelling at us and then they will follow us. Now, that's another way of getting them out of the room. And then obviously, if things are really out of control, go and find somebody else, get one of the children to go get somebody else to get some help, and so that we can manage the situation. We really need to be like a traffic director. And I believe this is what this teacher did, was she really directed what was going on rather than tried to fix what was going on. Sometimes we reach our limit with a child. And this is when we need to really know what our own limits are. So sometimes we need to send them away to somebody. A time out, and we'll talk about that in a moment, doesn't really help a 4-year-old. What they need is to go to another spot. So can we send them to the calm corner, or can we send them to someone else with a task? Again, this is one of those fine lines where we're noticing this child is riling up. They're getting sillier and sillier, and they're really starting to disrupt the other children. Sometimes if we're able to say to them, oh, could you please take this book? Could you please take this toy? Could you please take this to somebody else? They're usually quite happy to help you. And the book or the envelope, you can go to perhaps a class with older children, although again, right now with COVID, that doesn't work, but maybe a behavior technician or the secretary, or if you have a nurturing support center, find someone else for the child to go with. And then of course, if you've had to send them out of class, go and let them know, it's okay, I'm looking to have you tomorrow. So we really start to think about a time away instead of a time out. And what's really important here is that when they are away from us, they're now going to be with someone else. And it's really important is that once the child has left the classroom, however you got them to leave, if you did have to say you need to leave right now and somebody had to come and kind of escort them out of the classroom, that action of getting them outside of the classroom lets the other children know, I'm keeping the environment safe. But the minute that child leaves the classroom, the person who's taking care of them now really does not have to fix their behavior. Now they really need to get into that mindset of what happened to this child, what's going on for this child. So they go into the caring mode. They now come alongside the emotions. Oh, frustration. That wasn't working for you. Oh, that was really scary. You just wanted to run away. Or, oh, you really wanted him to play with you and he just wouldn't play with you. And so we try and let the child know that I understand something's going on in your emotional world that is too much for you. And I'm here and I understand it. I come alongside. I let you know I'm on your side. Or some of them might need, extra time. And in some of our schools, we have emotions rooms. You might need to maybe take the child outside and just give them a chance to maybe to hit a pillow, or to throw something, or to use pool noodles, to scream, to let their emotions out because it's just too much for them. Or for some children, they don't want to talk right now. They don't want to listen to you, and they just want to choose an activity that's calming them. The bottom line is that being kind to a child in distress does not reinforce their inappropriate behaviors. This is absolutely critical. This is a shift in thinking that we need to make about human behaviors and human development. And I'm going to ask you to think about what you would like your spouse or your loved one to do for you if you've had a bad day at work. You don't want your spouse to say, well, I saw this morning that you were kind of grumpy and you weren't in a very good mood. And you know what? You probably deserved what happened today because you were part of the problem. No, 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 no. If you call your spouse and say, I had a really bad day today, most of our spouses will figure out, oh, I better get out that better get the tea boiling. Maybe tonight's the night for the pizza that's in our freezer. And you walk in, all those people, da, 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 and then you smell the pizza. And then you look at your spouse and say, oh, thank you. I really needed that. And then because we have a brain that can reflect, we might even say, was I really grumpy this morning? When we are kind to people in distress, that allows them to think about their behavior. Not if my spouse had said to me, you know what, you need to go into your room and you need to think about what you did today, and you need to come out and tell me what you did wrong and what you're planning to do better. I don't think we'd be still married. Luckily, my spouse has not done that. We've been together for over 45 years. So being with or kind to a child who's in distress just reassures them the adults are caring for them. The biggest fear of our children is losing the adults who are going to take care of them. And when children are in strong attachment, that is what promotes maturation. That is what allows us to guide the child. And that's so important. And, in this particular, I love this picture because this is such a clear picture of an adult caring for a child. And this child will try and do his or her best to do what the adult wants. But remember, 4-year-olds can't remember very long what they want to do, but they will grow into it. When a child is really upset, manage the situation. Try not to cause more trouble with our own frustration. Don't expect any one intervention to correct or fix the child. Protect the relationship, provide more playtime. Honestly, if children are starting to have a really hard time, sometimes they just need more time to play. The only cure for a child who's full of alarm and frustration is time, lots of time and patience. And that's what we want to do, is to give them the time to grow up. What do they need? Well, we just need to take care of them, but also to avoid discipline practices that divide. Okay, because there are some of our practices like timeout. We don't necessarily think about timeout as we say, well, the child needs to think about what they did wrong, but 4 and 5-year-olds and immature 6-year-olds can't think about it. They just see the timeout as a separation. When you give the child a consequence, and not because you're going to take something away, like with the block area, because they're going to get in trouble, but I'm going to take the blocks away until you learn to behave. That doesn't work, because now they're attached to those blocks and they just dislike us even more. Or any kind of a reward system, and I'll talk about that in a moment, or the evaluation at the end of the day, because that prefrontal cortex is not yet functioning, so they can't think about their behavior or consider an alternative in the moment. And what they see is, the adults only like me when I behave well. And then they get into attachment separation alarm. And when they are alarmed, it's even harder for them to think about what they're supposed to do, or the brain does not grow and develop. So it's a very complicated thing. Let me just talk a little bit about the behavior chart. Some of you have already heard me talk about this, but it bears repeating. After the first few weeks of school, it's usually the same children who end up in the green and the same ones who end up in the yellow, orange, or the red. So in that first month, perhaps you have helped the children to see what it is you want them to do. But on the other hand, with the other children, now they start to feel kind of a sense of shame. If they could change their behavior, they would. And so because we know that they're immature or they have emotional needs. And so we don't want to make them feel more shamed about their behavior. So now you know which are the 4 or 5 kids that have a hard time, or maybe this also can tell you, it's a little bit late right now, but if you wanted to do this for one more week, you can see, oh, he always goes into the yellow or the orange when it's seat work time, or when it's this kind of playtime or that kind of playtime. So what we should be doing now is saying, okay, what can I do to prevent? And just let this go away. The sad thing is that some of our good children all get very worried about not being in the green. So they don't need this anymore after the first month of school. The agenda. Now, this is something, again, I've talked about this quite a few times because honestly, this is what I used to recommend schools to do. In fact, some of our agendas have these little red face, yellow face, green faces printed right in the agenda. And everybody at the end of the day gives the child a little tick mark on what it is. And we all think that if the kid gets green all the time, everything is wonderful. But it was parents who told me what this did to their relationship with their child. And in fact, Valérie, probably, I don't know if you remember, but it was one of your students way back when that told me. She said, you know, because when the child brings the agenda home and that red face or the yellow face is in the agenda, and this is what happened with this little boy, because the mom said, I have 3 little boys, I'm a single parent, I know my child's not perfect, but I have 15 minutes every day when I pick him up from school and I walk him home. As soon as I get home, the other 2 boys are there and I don't have any time for this little guy. But this is my precious 15 minutes with this little guy. And she said, Eva, when he has a green face, we have a lovely time. We talk and we have a good time, and I can just show him how much I love him in that 15 minutes. She said, when he has a yellow face or a red face, he won't show me the agenda. And she says, I don't even care what's in the agenda. He walks behind me because he doesn't want to see the disappointment on my face, because he knows I'm going to be disappointed. So it's just that disappointment. So I basically said to her, well, you know what, just look at it and say, oh, well, not a problem. Because then, and I'll tell you in a moment, the thing about it is that the parent is disappointed because they want the child to behave well. They want the child to have a good day at school. And so what happens is the parent now thinks they have to fix the behavior and correct it overnight. And so everybody's tense at home. And I know some parents say, no, I don't punish my child. I don't give my child a consequence. I just talk to my child. Well, I have to tell you that after all of us, even as adults, we all know that we should do better behavior. Right now, my daughter is on a diet and she wants me to be on a diet. And she says, Mom, you shouldn't be eating this and you shouldn't be eating that. Well, you know what? I have to look at her and say, please don't talk to me anymore about what I should and should not be eating. I know what I should and shouldn't be eating, but for some reason I can't control it as much as I want to, or as much as you think I should. Please don't keep talking at me. And because when we talk to a child, that's what they hear. Oh, I have to be better. I have to be better. And they can't right now. So if the parent and the child are frustrated and alarmed, now the child can't rest. Now they don't sleep very well. Now everybody's upset. It's just not a good scenario. So this isn't really helpful. And even the good children can become alarmed or get afraid. One little girl said to her mother, I'm so scared, Mommy, that this is going to be the week where I won't be able to get green faces every day. Wow, I never realized this causes anxiety among the good children. It's just not a very helpful way of fixing behavior because it can't be fixed overnight. And then the children start to see us as being the ones that kind of tell other people that they had a bad day. I would not like my boss very much if my boss called my spouse up and said, well, she had a bad day again today. I wouldn't feel very safe with someone who did that. So the bottom line is, of course, some of the parents need to know. And when we have a child with particularly challenging behaviors, we used to have a meeting at the beginning of the year and say, you know what, we're not going to send anything home in the agenda. And the parent would say, well, how do I know if my child had a good day or not a good day? You know what, we're going to have regular meetings. We're going to work on what we can do, but I'm not going to make your child bring home the bad news. And most parents could kind of get that. So you have a problem solving meeting. and you welcome the parent, and you have lots of empathy for the child's challenges. My goodness, some of the children, if I had a child like that, I would have a hard time parenting that child. So we show a lot of empathy. Your child's really having a hard time. Oh, it's really difficult for them. And we focus on one little thing that everyone can do. Do you think you could try to put your child to bed 5 minutes earlier? Maybe he just needs a little more sleep. And this is what we're going to do at school. And you show the parent all the different kinds of things that you're trying to do. So you at least, try and get the parent on your side and all of you working together. Now, this is one of the things that I would say to a parent. Okay, you're going to know your kid had a really challenging day, because what I'm going to write in the agenda is, I think he needs a little more TLC today. I think he needs a little more comfort. I think he needs a good warm bath, right? So now, if you later on, after he's gone to bed, you want to write to me and find out what happened, but you know what? Because again, it's just like my husband who's making a cup of tea and heating up the pizza. That's exactly what these children need. More caring when they've had a bad day. And then maybe as well, we need to have more frequent follow up with this family. We need to find other community resources for helping them. But by making everybody anxious about trying to change behavior, it really isn't all that helpful. Now, the last thing I want to share with you are guidelines for handling conflict between children. So children are going to have a hard time getting along with each other, especially when that prefrontal cortex is not very well developed and they're kind of squirmy and they all have their own ideas of what they want to do. And I watched a very, very wonderful kindergarten teacher intervening with the children in his class. And you just need to know this. It was a very handsome young man. The children all adored him. I also had worked with him for many years in a program for adolescents with severe behavior problems. And he said to me, I'm going to be a kindergarten teacher, Eva. I'm not sure I can do this. I said, don't worry. Those kindergarten kids are just like your adolescents, but they're cute. So I said, no problem. You can do this. But then I observed him. I had a chance to go and observe him with the kindergarten children. And I noticed that he was actually talking too much. So here are some ideas that I have. The two little guys, they were in the hallway, and one of them kind of shoved the other one, and the other one kind of shoved the other one back. Okay. Not a great situation. So first of all, we need to notice if kids are too close to each other, they're probably going to push and shove. It's just the way kids are. So we need to kind of tune into them. And those two little boys, it was kind of the end of the day. They were tired. It was everybody else's fault. Don't expect them to always sort things out on their own. And we need to, if let's say the two children are fighting over a toy, we need to listen to each child. But you know what? They're going to go on and on about then, and then he took my truck, and no, but it was my truck. No, but it was my turn for my truck. Oh my goodness. So we kind of let the child, that was frustrating. Oh, you really wanted that truck. And now we just make a decision. You know what? I think it's time for the truck to go and rest. Let's find something else to do. So we just take charge of the situation. We don't try and explain to them that they're supposed to share it, that it really was the other person's time. I noticed that this teacher spent too much time talking. We just sometimes need to act. And we can't figure out who did what to whom. We don't know how long the one child played with the toy. We don't know how long the other child did. And the other thing we need to remember is often the conflict is more than what it seems. A child who has experienced a lot of, let's say, mommy didn't get up in the morning or daddy didn't get up and give them breakfast, and they're hungry, and now they're going to come to school and they're going to get upset with another child, but not because of what the other child did, but because of what's happening in their life. So we need to remember that it's not always what it seems. And it's really hard to know who did what to whom. I remember my sister started yelling at my brother, and my mother said, he didn't even do anything. And my sister said, yes, but I saw the look in his eye. So, sometimes there's just stuff going on. So we need to just kind of get in there, and we have to remember they're going to really insist, no, this is the way it is. So they can't see the situation from the other child's perspective. So we just come alongside the experience. Oh my goodness, that was frustrating. Oh, you really wanted to play with the truck, or you were scared he was going to hit you, or you really wanted him to play with you. Oh, you felt really sad. So we just come alongside those experiences. We don't have to fix the situation. We just work with the emotions. And don't try and talk don't talk too much. This is one thing I saw my friend do, or my colleague do, is that he would say, now come on now, boys, you know that we're not supposed to hear at each other. Do you remember? And I said, they're both just looking at you saying, I hope my teacher doesn't hate me. I hope he doesn't hate me. They can't even hear a word you're saying at that moment. Just separate the two. Oh, you over here, you over here. That's just basically it. Separate them kindly. Don't say anything about their behavior. Give them something else to play with, or ask them to help you. Oh, I really need a strong child right now to help me with this. Usually 4-year-olds will switch over. And then if somebody hurts somebody else, don't request a sorry unless it's genuine. Interestingly enough, they've done research on asking little children. If somebody says sorry to you and they don't mean it, how does that make you feel? And these kids were like 5, 6 years old, or even 4 years old. And they said, I don't like it. It doesn't make me feel better when they say sorry and they don't mean it. Wow. Wow. Well, aren't we supposed to be sorry for our bad behaviors? Doesn't that make the other person feel better? Well, if it's not genuine, it doesn't. And remember, a 4-year-old can only think about what was done to them that was wrong. They can't yet feel sorry. Maybe a bit later they will, but in that moment they can't. So what we need to do, and people often say, but that child needs something. Absolutely. The child who got hit, the child who got yelled at, the child who got shoved, they need something. But what they need is us. We go to the child and we say, I'm so sorry this happened to you. And you let them know that you're working at making things better. But I'm so sorry this happened to you. I'm going to talk to Billy. Billy shouldn't have pushed you. Are you okay? I'm so sorry that happened to you. And interestingly enough, when we do that, the children believe that that's what they want to know. They want us to recognize their pain. When kids go home and say, nobody did anything, it's because we were too busy trying to fix the child who had the problem and not actually letting the child know that we see their pain, that we see their hurt. And actually, we might even be able to go and apologize to the other child who had difficulty, because a lot of these kids, when they push or hurt their friend, they feel badly. And we can actually say to them, oh, that got out of control. You were just too frustrated. I should have helped you sooner. Next time, I'm going to try and make sure that I help you sooner so that it's easier for you to use your words and not to use your hands. I'll see what I can do. It's really, again, about us taking charge of the situation, recognizing the emotions there. And I know this seems like a lot. It's something you have to practice, but it's amazing how much more helpful it is to a child to actually talk to them. And I have a whole article about that. I should give it to you, Valerie, to send to people about coming alongside emotions. So just as a quick review from Dr. Neufeld, one of the things he says is, in the moment, don't try and fix situations. So don't try and make headway in the incident. Try and get the child to be in attachment with you. And this is why, if they look at you with their eyes, and if they have oh, this was really hard for you, and they look a yes, now we can say, now I need you to do such and such. Nurture and safeguard their desire to be good for you. Oh, it was an accident. You didn't want to hurt him. Oh, I know you were trying really hard to be good. Know our own limits and work within them. Bridge whatever could divide. So basically, we need to put the focus. If it was at the end of the day did not work out very well, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm going to take care of you tomorrow. We're going to find something for you to do. These fallback measures are basically exactly what I've been saying. Assume responsibility for the child who gets into trouble. Use structure and routine to orchestrate the behavior. Change the circumstances that control the child. Help the child to find another way to do things. Now, this might not be easy because they can often forget, but who do you go for help? Who can help you? How do you ask for help? Where do you go when you have a break? We can give them some ideas of things to do, and so that it's easier for them to find the right thing to do in the moment. I love cartoons, Calvin and Hobbes, because basically Bill Watterson got it. I'm in a crabby mood, so everyone leave me alone. I hate everyone. Nobody recognizes my hints to smother me with affection. Bottom line is, students with challenging behaviors are just trying to let us know they need us to help them. They grow and develop in this relational garden. As Dr. McNamara said, inside of our children is a developmental plan to be unfolded, and we're the gardeners. And that is why kindness is so much more effective than trying to correct or change the behavior of a child. So that's it for now. I will stop sharing and hopefully have some questions. But Sarah, I think you might have some thoughts that you want to share about.
I would also invite people to open their camera if they feel like they want to turn it on.
Well, always amazed with the content of the theory of what you're presenting, Eva, because it gets along with the way of the First Nation used to raise children. Well, I also want to say thank you to every one of you. A lot of new people coming here, joining us to think, to reflect, to trying to find a new way. Sometimes solution, and then it's the lifelong learning journey. So I'm really thankful, and I feel like it's a blessing that we can have this time to share together and to learn from Heva, and then from her ancestor, and then from you, maybe if you want to share a little bit. So it goes along with the theory of Eva and then of Dr. Neufeld, because we believe also that it's kindness that must lead, the teaching of our children. And every children of First Nation, they're sacred. They have a gift that is, and it's our responsibility to observe them very closely and to see, well, how can I help them raise and then develop this gift. And then we also respect their rhythm. Yeah, and each of them have their own rhythm. So when they're ready, then ready. When they're not, they're not. So it's not about a time, and it's not about pushing them into this learning or into this development. Well, it would get there in time with love, if you don't have too much big obstacle in front of you, and people that care for you. So let's be those people who care for you. And I'm sure if you're here today, you are the kind of people who want to go a little further, who want to have more solution, who want to be that person that will change those little one lives. So it's all about giving them opportunity to be good. So Eva gives so many idea about that. So when you see a one that's maybe have a behavior challenge, let's say that this way, well, it's try and be creative, give them something that maybe you need think about, how can we help this little one, give them opportunity to be good, and see what happens. I have like people in mind, little one in mind, that were really, really difficult, always kicked out of the special activities and always calling the parents, and me surround that little one with a lot of attention and then like everything come easy with that little one after that. So I just want to hear people, if you have like a special question for Eva, or just a story, how your ancestor, your elder Kukum and Mushum were doing like amazing thing by just being there, being kind, surround you with love and attention, and taking time. It's gonna take time, but we're gonna get there.
I find it was a really interesting to listen to, like just listening it, like it brought a lot of kids to mind as to, all the things that you were talking about. There's a child that's in my mind, and the child is nonverbal in his like really like aggressively behavior, and he can't express what what's bothering him or what's not, and you try and ask him and he can't communicate. So it's really hard and challenging.
Yes, definitely hard with the ones. But again, I don't know if you've attended all of the other sessions, but the three big emotions that most children are experiencing is frustration. So things not working. And of course, if a child is nonverbal, so much is not working for them because they can't let us know. And so, just basically, oh, that wasn't working for you. That wasn't what you wanted. And even if they don't always understand all our words, they do understand that we get how frustrating it must feel to them, or they're scared or whatever. So, but it's really learning to read the nonverbal. And again, we like words as educators, we love words, but 85% of human communication is nonverbal. So there's lots of communicating that child is doing. And how, rather than trying to, in the olden days, we used to try and eliminate behaviors, get rid of behaviors. But with a child who has lots of frustration, maybe there's some activities or things that you can do with him to give him a chance to get some of that frustration out. Maybe, I don't know how physically mobile that child is, but just some drumming on the table, like just getting some of that out, or so that just understand that. And again, we had a whole session on emotion and play, and how play allows emotions to get out. So just rather than thinking, how can I get rid of the behavior? What can I do to help the child move through the behavior? Is more that's the whole approach that we've taken. And it's, we've done 10 sessions, or probably actually 11 sessions now. We have 2 more. And next time I'm going to talk about the child who says no all the time. That's a whole nother challenge. And I'm going to unpack why it's important for children to say no, and what we can do when we need them to do stuff and they shouldn't be saying no. But the bottom line is that human behavior is complicated. It's complex. There's no simple fix. There's no star chart or anything simple that's going to fix behavior. And what we're really talking about is growing behavior, growing maturity. Very different approach than the behavioral approach of trying to get rid of behavior. And of course, that's, I think, again, Sarah, this is what culture did. Culture grew their children up. And then we got into a very complex society, and now we needed them to behave in certain ways, and we got all messed up. We really did get all messed up. So if you go back to your more cultural ways, you are in a better spot. Yeah. But thank you for sharing. I don't know if that helped you with that child, or if there's something else.
Eva, I have a question. Sorry.
Yes, Diane. Yeah, go ahead.
We
two Dianes.
I have a student who tattles on every other student in class. Short of just telling him over and over that he needs to be responsible for himself, and that we'll watch what the other students are doing. Is there any tips, tricks that you have that we could deal with it?
Because you see, that's again where we have to focus on the emotion rather than on the behavior. So, and again, it might not work initially. Like, he might get a little frustrated with you because you're not, but and again, it goes back to a situation that I saw in a playground. A little guy who comes up to the behavior technician and says to her, Miss, he called me a weenie. He's being really mean to me. Right? So kind of scenario, right? And of course, I, as an observer, could kind of see what was going on. But the teacher in the moment was, either would have responded as you did, no, now, whatever, but when I stepped back, I said, what does this kid want? He wants the adult. He's bringing his pain to the adult and just wants the adult to acknowledge that he's in pain. Now, this little guy, I don't know about what your little guy is like, but this little guy was a real weenie. Oh my goodness. He was a really, really irritating little kid. And I can imagine that a poor other kid, if we went and talked to him and we really asked him what happened, he said, Miss, I told him 3 times he could have the ball in a minute, but he wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like, there was a story there. So, but I thought, what does this boy want? Well, he wants the teacher to say, oh, I'm so sorry. That was so frustrating. That didn't work out the way you wanted it to work out. Oh, you really wanted him to play with you, have fun with you, share the toy with you. Oh, that's so frustrating. And you just sit with that.
See, this is not just, it's not something that's always happening to him. He'll let us know that, oh, well, this one here, he's not in his right spot. he's he's just constantly telling
Yes.
on the other children, and
Yeah.
we keep saying nobody's going to want to play with you if you keep always telling.
But you
on
see,
them.
he's telling on them because that's a surefire way to get you to spend 2 minutes with him.
Okay.
Right? So when he comes to you and says, so-and-so's not doing so-and-so, now you need to go, well, thank you very much for telling me. You're a really observant kid. And you see, now you're responding to his need for attachment.
Okay.
Because this is like his little kind of ticket. It doesn't matter what you say. All he wants you to is talk to him.
Just acknowledge that he's okay.
Yeah, just, well, thank
we'll
you
try
very
it
much
for a week.
yeah. Just say, thank you very much for letting me know. Thank you so much. You're so observant. I really appreciate having a kid like you in my classroom. And you just give him a little whatever, hug or high five. I'll tell you, it doesn't matter if he comes to you 75 times telling what the other kids did. It's just your chance to tell him what a great kid he is.
Yeah. Okay.
And he says, oh, you're going to do it? Oh, of course I'm going to do it. Don't worry. I'll take care of it. Don't you worry. It's his way of asking you, please take care of me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
How old is he?
5.
Yeah, sure, exactly. You can. You tried the other stuff, right? So try this one.
Every day, a million times a day.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Give it a try. I don't know if the other Diane had a question that she wanted to ask, or if anybody else.
No, I just the lady that just spoke about having to work with a nonverbal child. The reason why I'm taking some of this training too is I have a nonverbal. Well, I have a grandson that's nonverbal too. He does communicate with us in his own way, and he does get frustrated, and I do have behavior issues with him because he shows signs of autism. He's ADHD. He was diagnosed with mild cognitive developmental delays, and he has ulcerative colitis.
Oh, poor. And so his stomach doesn't feel good most of
Yeah.
the time. How old is he?
He's 12, but
Oh
he's
my-
like a 4-year-old.
Yeah. And you see, and that's the hard part is he's big and he can hurt people, but he's probably.
I tried something new yesterday because when we were talking about culture. So yesterday he was trying to act up, and then I put on a YouTube video of drumming. So I took out my hand drum with him.
Good.
And I started drumming, and then I passed it on to him, and he started drumming, and then he started singing.
Good for you.
It calmed him down, and we also did a little smudge, and
good.
But it completely changed. It changed him a lot. He was really calm, and
a drum is
had a
so
good day.
it's so interesting because, first of all, as you say, there's something about drumming that also mimics the heartbeat.
Well, that's what they say the drum is. It's the heartbeat.
Yes, it's the
Our
heartbeat.
heartbeat. Yeah.
Yes. So if he's in alarm and we drum like a heartbeat, it's just like when we hold a baby and they hear the mother's heartbeat, but he's 12 years old. But so that's a way of you kind of giving him back the heartbeat. And then sometimes if he's like really frustrated, you can do like hard drumming, right? And but then you can lead if you also have a drum as well, you can lead hard drumming and then more kind of rhythmic drumming. But you also need to give him a chance to get some of his frustration out. I mean, how hard is it to be in a body that doesn't work right? And he wants you to believe that if he could, he wouldn't behave this way. And that's why whenever he has an outburst, afterwards it's so important to go to him and say, you didn't want to do that. That wasn't what you had in mind. I'm here. We'll get through this. We'll find a better way. I'm looking for different ways to help you. I'm here. So in the moment, you did what you had to do to deal with him, and it's not always pretty, but afterwards, always important to go and say, I'm still here. I'll take care of you. We're going to figure it out. So it's a challenge, but it sounds like you're really on the right path.
Thank you.
I have another question. Do you think a lot of like these behaviors are like I don't even know how to put it, like, are they just seeking more attention where they just want that extra love? Are they not getting it from home and that's why they're acting out? And you know what I mean? Like, or you have children who just come and they just want to hug you, you know, like, are they not getting the affection or not? And is that what's, you know, triggering them? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the basic message that we give, that the developmental attachment-based approach gives, is that attachment is our primary need as human beings. And so, and even those of us as adults, I mean, I mentioned my dear darling husband, you know, of 45 years, but you know, if he's grumpy with me, if he's not happy with me, I go into attachment alarm. You know, I get worried. Are you okay? Are we okay? Like we've been together for all these years, you know, like for heaven's sakes, you know, he kind of looks at me and says, you don't know I love you by now, but you know, we're always so children constantly, I mean, something I can't remember what people say now, there's, you know, like children need like, you know, 25 hugs a day. And you're right, some families, and again, you know, we're not judging people at all. I mean, again, with all the history that some people have had to live through, they just aren't, you know, they just, they're coping with their own pain. And so, yes, some of these children, if my parents can't do it, is there going to be somebody else? Also, we always say provide more than what is asked for. I remember one kindergarten teacher saying to me, this little guy, he comes into the classroom, and she said he runs into the classroom and he grabs my leg. And she's like, can't do anything because he's like a leech, he's grabbed onto my leg. And so I said, she said, you know, like, what am I going to do? I said, you see him coming through the door? And then you don't wait till he grabs your leg. You go right towards him and you say, hi, honey, grab my leg. I'm here. And I don't often get feedback from people, you know, like, but about a year later, she said, do you remember me? I said, well, not really, because I've met so many people. She said, I'm the one with the kid who grabbed onto her leg. I said, oh yeah, what happened? She said, you know, when I gave him a hug before he gave me a hug, he wasn't so desperate. So you're absolutely right. Children constantly want to know, who is taking care of me? Will you be there for me? Are you going to hold my immaturity against me? You know, and so if we can answer that need, then their brains can grow. And when their brains can grow, it's easier for them to kind of, you know, do more things for us. I see there's a question as well. I have a student who likes to run out of class and who is now going to the playground. She does this even when she doesn't like the she does this whenever she doesn't like the activity. Well, yes, and for some children, I know it seems odd because we think, well, nothing horrible is going to happen if I get them to do something they don't like. But many children are very sensitive to failure. And for whatever reason, this little girl probably looks at the activity and thinks, I can't do this, or, you know, I don't want to do it. And so she runs away. What we've tried to do in some of our classrooms is to create a spot where the child can run away, but still stay in the classroom. And that's why I like a table with a tablecloth over it. So instead of running out of the classroom, we just say, oh, honey, if you want to run away, why don't you run under the table? And look, there's some little fidgets for you to do. At least she's in the classroom and can still hear what you're doing. But the running away when we think something is too hard for us is the alarm response. And I suspect this little girl has a lot of alarm in her life rather than just the learning. So it's some of it is just kind of, and you know, again, this is where you say, oh, you didn't really like that behavior. Oh, you thought that activity was a little too hard. Why don't you come and tell me? And then give her another alternative activity so you can keep her in the classroom as much as possible. All of the interventions take time. None of them fixes the problem overnight. You know, sometimes we have to say to ourselves, is it the end of the world if she doesn't do this activity today? And usually, at least at 4 and 5 year olds, it shouldn't be. You know, so but I think this is a little girl who has a lot of alarm in her. A lot of things are scary for her, and it manifests itself when she has to do something that she thinks is hard. Yeah. So I don't know if
Eva, we have a question, but it's been asked to me directly. I have a student who talks nonstop and is very loud. How can I help him?
Well, yes. Again, possibly, this is a little one who maybe if you can have a couple of minutes at the beginning of the day, maybe just say, okay, honey, tell me everything you want to tell me. This is your time. You can just tell me all sorts of things. So maybe that will help a little bit. So he doesn't have to keep getting your attention. You know, this is one of those times when you do need to kind of have to say, no, you need to stop right now. Also, if it's really, really, really disturbing the other children, maybe someone can come and take him away for a little while. And, you know, this is a child who is just, again, his needs, his worldview, his way of seeing the world is just for him, and he's a talker. So again, sometimes, you know, you have to kind of manage his behavior or whatever, but, you know, he needs to talk to somebody. So let's give him a chance to talk. Maybe one-on-one, there would be somebody who really consider this, you know, listen to him. But there's kind of a lot of sort of, he's a very wound up little guy, and he might need some physical activity instead of sitting quietly. So I don't know if that helps at this moment.
She says, thank you, Eva, is funny.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's, you know, one of the things that's so unusual is human beings were not designed to all be the same age in the same room together. That's not human, you know, that's not how families were designed. If you look even at large families, you know, les familles nombreuses that we have in Quebec, or, you know, it's a little one and then a slightly bigger one and a slightly bigger one and a slightly bigger one, right? And even, you know, you can even have like a 6-year-old who understands that the 3-year-old needs help. But 4-year-olds don't really have much compassion for each other. You know, it's our need as a society to put 4-year-olds all together, to put 5-year-olds all together. The most ideal classroom, not necessarily from an academic performance point of view, but the ideal social classroom are 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, and 8-year-olds all together, because the older ones can take care of the younger ones, and the younger ones can look up to the older ones and act like an older one. You know, putting 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds all together, not really that smart, but it's the way our system works.
I have like a question, Eva.
Sure.
Kind of like a question / comment. And it's stemming off of what you said. Discipline is what adults do. Okay, so, you know, like I've been through some trainings with Dr. Neufeld.
Mhm.
And, you know, he talked about adults assuming this responsibility, like taking the alpha role
Mhm.
in mastering the lead.
Mhm.
So you assume your role and you are the answer, but you got to find this in you.
Yeah.
And then he said something like, today's parenting punishes children for dependence. Do you think that's, you know, something that's an issue these days?
Well, we want children to dress themselves, to do things for themselves. You know, I've heard, and again, I'm hoping this isn't true in your schools, but I have heard people tell even like a technician or an attendant of a handicapped child, now you must not do anything for that child that they can do for themselves. So if they know if they can put their sweater on, then you have to they have to put their sweater on. And, you know, basically, I did a whole talk for a bunch of educational assistants who were working with children with special needs. And I said, as an alpha, it isn't our job to make a child do something for themselves, you know, that they can do all the time. Of course, with some, you know, you want a child to try out things, to do things for themselves. But, you know, if my husband again said to me, Eva, you know how to do that, please don't expect me to help you because you know how to do it yourself. I know how to cook, but you know what? I love it when he comes to the kitchen and helps me to cook. You know, so, but it's called the alpha dance. Sometimes a child is saying, oh, could you please put my sweater on? No, honey, you know how to do it yourself. And they're just, you can just tell that they're kind of like, and so you say, no, honey. And then, you let them do it themselves. But then sometimes you see them, please help me with my sweater. And you realize, okay, they're tired today, because a lot of these kids, especially with special needs, they're tired. They just can't. So you help them. It's always the dance. You do a little bit. But, if you help a child who is dependent at some point, and all of you have probably had that experience of your little 3-year-old or 4-year-old saying, I'll do it myself. I don't need help. I'll do it myself. But that only comes when we've generously helped them. And some people say, well, I have this kid, he always wants everybody to do something for him. Well, I have a suspicion that this is probably a child where when he should have been dependent, the parents weren't able to take care of him. So giving more when they're little actually promotes this natural desire to do it themselves. But once in a while, you have to do what I call benign neglect. Once in a while, you have to say, oh, I need to go help Billy. And then the kid, oh, okay. And then the kid, does whatever they're supposed to do. So it's a dance. It's the alpha reads the situation and then does what they think is right for the child. And then if they did the wrong thing, they correct themselves and say, well, next time I'll try and do another way. I will try and do it another way. So it's really about the adult. And it's amazing when you do that, so many children I want to do it myself. But they first need to feel taken care of. I don't know if that answers your question, Cheryl.
Yeah, it kind of does. But I think I was looking more for your opinion.
Is our society, again, some people do and some people don't, but a lot of people, come on, my kid has to get dressed by themselves. They have to feed themselves. They have to do this for themselves. I remember, one of, again, we just think they should be independent. I had a friend who did a lot of traveling and she had 2 little children at home. And she said, my 2-year-old or 2.5-year-old, he knows how to feed himself. But when I come home from a trip, he wants to sit in my lap. And I said, let him sit in your lap because you've been away on a trip. He needs you to know that you're taking care of him. But the script she had in her mind is he should feed himself. No, he needs you to take care of him first. So we have a script of push, push, push independence. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
But is it wrong to push too much independence?
Yes, it's too stressful for kids. It's that fine balance, because, I mean, again, some kids will say, and I remember I was the kind of kid who said that too. I remember, my teacher wanted me to write a paragraph and I told my mother I couldn't do it, and my mother knew that I could. And she said, no, honey, you're going to have to do it. And so she pushed me when she knew I could do it. And of course, I finally did do it and I was so proud of myself. But if I had been incapable of doing it and someone had pushed me, then I would have probably given up. It's that perfect little point, of pushing kids further than they think they can go, but also reading when it might be too much for them and trusting that eventually they'll do it. And it's hard. You've got, yeah, go ahead.
Like say we're going outside for recess and I have 12 kids and to do 4-year-olds with 12 coats, it's, okay, you try, and if, then we'll help like with the zipper and stuff. But
perfect. That's exactly what it is. You try, give it a try. And then that's what I call benign neglect, because if they really are quite good at, can do it, and you say, give it a try, but I'll help you, most of them will give it a try. And if it works, then they're happy. But if it really doesn't work, then they want to know you will help them. So yeah, that's that push. That's that little bit of pushing, right? A little bit of give it a try and I will help you. But if you see them just looking at you like it really doesn't work, and you know how some of those zippers really don't work. Right? Yeah. It's a dance. It's a dance. Yeah. And give yourself a lot of permission to make mistakes. If at the end of the day you go, oh boy, I really blew that. You know what? Yeah, we're all just walking a maze. We're all just trying to figure out how to do it. I'm going to try again tomorrow. I'm going to forgive myself and try again tomorrow. And that's all kids want to know the next day. Are you here for me? Are you going to try again, miss? Is it okay? Yeah, here I go again. I'll probably be just perfect until 10 o'clock in the morning. And then I'm probably going to lose it again, you guys. But you know what? I'm not giving up.